Today we have quite a lot for you. Strike, its impact on the economy. Still the IMF conversation from yesterday, we didn't get to talk about that. We'll have our guest who will be joining us today to give us more insights on it. And then the implications of the Nigerian economy on education. To stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Business Daily on Trust TV. And before the break, I told you looking at strikes. But I have in the studio with me to discuss this and more, and equally joining us virtually. In the studio here is Dr. Elias. I said I was going to.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome to the show this morning. And joining us virtually is Dr. Agosto Bamayi. Thank you so much. Good morning for joining us all the way from Yola, Adamawa State. Okay, I'm sure we'll get to get the sound better. I didn't hear what you said, but thank you for joining us. We're supposed to have Dr. Bamayi yesterday, actually, but due to one or two issues, he couldn't make it. But he's joined us today, and we'll go back to that conversation of yesterday. But before we delve into our discuss, so we said the federal government wants to launch the feeding program again. What's your take on that?
Right, it's quite interesting. Actually, I carried out a research on N-Power, and this is part of the N-Power. But the question is that have we appraised what we have been doing before? Has it translated to economic development? Has it translated to well-being of our students, people that have been fed? How far is it? You know, when you are doing things, you're supposed to actually put a measure. Don't mind me, I'm studying academics. But when you do something, you're supposed to do a research about it. How has it enabled students to learn more? How has it translated to what they're actually doing? Because if you look at it, Empire was launched around 2016, to be precise. So if you look at 2016 to now, that's about 9 years. So a child who is in primary school that time should be in secondary school or university by now. So has it translated to more better education output? That is the question we need to look at. Has it actually reduced the poverty rate? Has it reduced the purchasing? I mean, has it increased the purchasing power of those parents? Then these are the things we need to, because successive administration have carried out what do we call it, poverty reduction program. You recall Obasanjo came with needs, which is national empowerment. You know, there's a way you call it. Jonathan actually, you know, if you are came with wealth creation, Jonathan came with subsidy reinvestment, which we call UWIN. You know, and the Buhari came with N-Power. So tinubu has not defined how he wants to actually reduce power, but he wants to relaunch this. It's a good one. But have you assessed, appraised?
But then again, you know, when it was done before, you know, yes, you said the impact on education. It made some children go to school, right? Because the parents are like, okay, I'm sure you're going to get food, so why don't you go? But it became a thing of just going to school for food.
Right. Well, that's a serious contradiction. The aim is not because they should go to school, it's because we need to have more people in academics, more people that study more. But when you say that could work for the north, you know, for the south, I don't know, is that also for them to go to school? Because naturally people from the south will like to go to school, but in the north, which I am part of, we need to be convinced. My own was Koboko, so we need to go. And when we get the Koboko,
I see you here now,
yes, we need to go with Koboko.
They have to beat you, but
yeah, exactly. So, and you know, that time was not now. You have to measure, you know, there's a way you have to measure yourself if you are qualified for actually primary education.
Okay.
So, but by and large, it's a good one.
Okay. Doctor, can you hear us? All right, what's your take on the FD relaunching the feeding program? All right, okay, so we're having a challenge with hearing our guests. So now let's go back to our conversation for today. Strikes and their impact on the economy. And yesterday, it really showed me what the kind of impact it had. Because I had somebody who was supposed to be leaving for Canada this morning. The Air Peace cancelling the flight indefinitely. I was on my phone looking for other flights. I couldn't even find other flights for them to come into Abuja to now move. They've had to stay back. I have another person again right now, again, in that situation, having to leave. But, you know, this flight cancellation, the impact it's having on the economy. But let's see what, or the reason why Air Peace actually cancelled. Let's hear from Alan Onyema. He put up a video, rather there was a candid video of him as to why they were shutting down their airplanes, or their flights rather.
Has NAGMED called off this strike?
No, I haven't gotten that update.
If NAGMED has not called off the strike, cancel and suspend every Air Peace flight now with immediate effect. People's lives and the safety of our equipment, safety of our crew, safety of people's lives, first and foremost. If any other airline, I don't want to hear, the vice chairman just called me now and said that he heard that we are trying to cancel flights, that other airlines are flying. I don't.
So, peradventure, if you're wondering why your Air Peace flight was cancelled indefinitely, that is the reason. Now, let's go to the conversation. Now, according to the story, the NIMET workers began an indefinite strike on Tuesday over unresolved issues, and some of them, you know, it's welfare as always. We have the issue here in Nigeria. The strike was organized by three major aviation unions: the National Union of Air Transport Employees, the Association of Nigerian Aviation Professionals, and the Amalgamated Union of Public Corporations, Civil Service, Technical and Recreational Services Employees. Quite a long name there. But the union cited several long-standing grievances, including unpaid allowances, wage disparities, and poor welfare conditions. Now, despite previous discussions and assurances from the authorities, the unions claimed that meaningful progress had not been made, prompting the coordinated industrial action. Now, these people are a very vital part of our air transport system, and I would expect that they should be taken care of. What's your take in all of this?
All right, as a frequent flyer, I think the Air Peace has done the right thing, because don't it can be compared to life of people in the aircraft and also even the workers during. However, it's gladdening that it's actually affecting people at the top echelon of the economy, which simply means that now that it's affecting them, they will take it much more serious. You know, before we hear strike, we say strike affect people, the downtrodden, but now it's affecting the top echelon. You can see someone wants to travel to Canada and they could not, the person could not fly again. So I think it's a good signal that people welfare need to be taking good care. In as much as they are contributing to the economy, they need to be taken care of as well. And we could see how negative externalities can affect our economy. Imagine the cost people have traded off for that singular cancellation. Imagine even this cancellation is for a day or even 30 minutes, even for 1 hour, even a flight. I could remember I had to travel and the flight was cancelled. I can tell you what I trade off. You know, it's not a small thing. So let alone this level, which is not even only local. It affects also international. That simply means we need to take care of people's welfare. We must not wait for them to go into the street, you know, to start, strike, to start picketing before we take care of them. We need to take care of workers so that at least things can go. And that's the negative we have just seen.
Okay. All right, Dr. Bamai, thank you for joining us again on the program.
Thank you.
All right. Now, what are the short-term versus long-term effects of industrial strikes? Now, I know that we'll say ASU mostly affects the students, but even at that, it has an impact on the economy in its own way as well. What can you say are the short-term and long-term impacts of industrial strikes?
Well, in the short term, and that extends also to the long term, it gives a bad picture of our country to the world. It shows the world that we're not organized. You know, simple issues like welfare of workers, we don't attend to that until workers come out on strike. And a single day missed out of work results in a lot of losses for the government and the people involved. And that would affect the individuals who are involved in the strike. It will affect the government, and it will affect people who are within the sphere of the influence of all those involved in the strike. So it's really not a good thing to go on strike, you know, whatever the reasons are. And this time around, they do have genuine reasons, but economically it's not a good thing, and diplomatically it's also not a good thing. It presents a bad picture to the world about what sort of people we are. Personally, I had a situation where, in terms of taking care of the welfare, I worked for a particular government in my state here. And from the time I started working, it's an appointment, a political appointment. My allowances and welfare and all that was not given to me up to the end of the administration. And now that I'm talking to you, it's almost a decade, I have not been paid. And so if anybody comes to me and say, and talk about political appointments in my state, I don't want to hear it. I mean, it's you put your time, you put your labor the top people are taking care of themselves. They are gallivanting here and there, going for holidays and shopping spree and the rest of it. And here you are working. I stay in the office up to 10 in the night just to make sure my boss looks good and that his work is properly done. But my welfare have not been attended to. It's a very bad attitude that we have in Nigeria, and I think we need to overcome that. They were talking about things like adjustments in minimum wage that has been done twice between the time they're talking about and now. And these people who take care of our air safety have not been attended to. It shows that we're not serious as far as the welfare of our staff is concerned. And this should be attended to. And like the guest said, since it affects the top people, they're going to act.
All right. Okay. First of all, apologies for the situation or what has happened to you after giving your time and energy to work. It's quite a sad one there, giving everything you've got and then, you don't get, your remuneration or your due. But let's come back now. Essential services. We see this happen a lot in Nigeria. This is the first time I'm seeing aviation people actually, so something related to them go on strike in a while. But we see that we have the resident doctors do this and the effects, at times people die because they say, I'm not going to attend to people because, we're striking. Now, how do strikes in these services, that is the health, aviation, power, how does it compare to non-critical sectors?
Right. The last conference I attended for Save the Consumers, and we have NCAA, National Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, and all of us were complaining that we've been having bad flight experience and whatever. They came out and said those things are what they can actually avoid, that it's meant to happen. So let's look at it from perspective of essential workers. Should we even have what is called essential workers, or we should have workers generally? So does it mean some people can be underpaid while some people are paid well? So for me, I want to zero on either essential worker or non-essential worker. Once you work, you are entitled to your payment. I read it just this morning that 50 billion of end allowance of ASU has just been released, and that's a kudos to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, simply because since he came up, we've not seen strike. And to prevent such strike, that means you need to do the needful. They're actually working. So why do we have to wait to that level? Look at the pathetic story that Dr. just related. It's discouraged young people like us to actually work. I can tell you, I've gotten a kind of appointment, from one ministry. They said they want me to be their technical advisor on economics. And why they engaged me, I asked for my, package. First thing I asked for, where is my letter? They said, no, I shouldn't worry, they will give me letter. They said, well, how much do I want to collect? I said, you have a standard. Why don't you give me the standard? So we agree on a particular amount. At the end of the day, the person told me that he's going to be paying me from his pocket, that he's going to collect it from the minister and pay me from his pocket. And I said, no, I cannot do that. You need to profile me in a normal way so that I can get it directly from source. There's a back and forth. At the end of the day, I said, well, no matter how big the ministry is, no matter the experience I'm going to get from, if you cannot pay me my basic, there's no way I can do it. And I said no. And to my surprise, the minister was changed, from that portfolio to a Minister of State, simply because they are underperforming. When you don't give people what they actually deserve and you want them to work for you, it will reflect on your work as well. So, and this is why Nigeria is where we are today.
So basically, in general, in work environment, giving people their due could equally, in its way, impact the economy. Because you could have done something more for that ministry, but because
it motivates people to do better beyond even salary. There are other motivating factors that you must come in, but the basic one must be salary, because you must take money home. You must take something home for your family to be fine before you can continue whatever you are doing. So Nigeria must take it as a point of duty to pay people what they actually deserve at the right time. All
right, Doctor. So government's role in intervention, it always seems like they've been talking about this. I'm going to go back to this Naima story. They've been talking about this strike in January, in February. Now, it was up until they went on strike that the government is having a sit down with them today. What is actually the government's role, in interventions, in playing, in minimizing this constant strike? When people say we're going to go on strike, why not sit with them at that moment? Why wait to see if they're going to carry out their supposed threat or,
It is a reflection of the fact that we do not take our workers seriously. We run the economy, we run the country on their backs, on their sweat and all that. But because we term them non-essential, we feel like we can just ignore them, their allowances, their salaries and all that. And so even when they say, please do this for us because it's our right and we deserve it, otherwise we're going on strike, you don't find the right people coming to sit down and talk with them to prevent the strike. We feel like, well, they will just make noise. At the end of the day, they won't do nothing. And then eventually they go on strike, and then you have what you have now, a fire brigade approach. You begin to run around because there's fire on the mountain and everybody is running around. It's really unfortunate the way we do things in Nigeria. There is no planning to it. There's no system to it. Even where there's system, we deliberately do not follow that system. And we just carry on haphazardly. And I have said this, I'll repeat it again, that no country ever develops in a haphazard manner. There has to be planning. And those who work for you, those who labor to keep the country together, to keep the economy going, you have to attend to their welfare. But unfortunately, Nigeria is big people that attend to their welfare. They would ask for their allowances up front before they even start work. And when you, at the middle level or at the lower level, do the same, they say you're not patriotic, you're not committed, you're not serious. This has to change, really, because we have to understand that it's the people that are the country. It's the people that are our economy. The government is there for the people. The people are not there for the government. And so those who work for government or work for companies should be taken care of. Whatever their benefits are, whatever their remunerations are, that should be given to them on time. They don't.
Okay. All right. I'm sure the doctor will join us back. Now let's go to another conversation. We're moving away from that. We have quite a lot to look into, and maybe we would have stayed more, but for time. And it's the issue of the impact of the economy on education. Now, for now, we're seeing food insecurity, food security, or cost of living. Tomatoes are high, pepper is high, this is high. But now schools are meant to resume on Monday. And in Lagos, Taiwo spoke to some residents, and here is his report. Speaking with Trust TV, Okpeyemi Shola, a parent residing in Lagos, recounted her personal struggle to keep up with the relentless rise in the cost of educational materials. She detailed how the soaring cost of living has made affording her children's education an increasingly arduous task.
Country where a bottle of Coke is being sold for 500 naira. You can imagine books, textbooks, stockings, and the school fees. In some school, we do pay 15,000 before per term. Now it should be 35,000. This resumption is going to cost a lot, and how we are going to get the money, we don't know. We only trust God that this country will get better soon.
Another parent, Jide Oguntoba, echoed these sentiments, emphasizing the widespread hardship faced by families striving to meet fundamental obligations like paying their children's school fees.
Presently, things is very bad. But all life, we have nothing to do than to be moving from one point to another to be able to gather and pay for our children school fees, because it's our responsibility as a good parent or as a responsible parent. We have been planning to do that, but we find it not even easy. But we have no choice, we have to continue. But I am telling you, as in the present situation of these economies, it has never bad like this. Right now, things are getting worse, but we are praying God should intervene and put into a better state.
Several other parents who spoke with Trust TV conveyed a sense of frustration and anxiety as they attempt to plan for the upcoming term without clear financial solutions in sight.
Preparing for children's school fees or the like, it is quite challenging. But however, like I said earlier on, you need to have a different source of income. So that will help me a lot to cope with the current challenges.
Like maybe if you get 3 to 4 children in school or 2, maybe it depends how your salary pays. If you can pay 2 or 3 times, you understand what I mean? For the private schools. But for government schools, I beg Nigerian government, please, there is a way to handle the country. mostly in this economical way. If we go to other countries, all these European countries, I know that Nigeria is very good at, look at, we are 5th or 6th oil largest producing country, oil. In fact, they are living fine, no matter how they look at the money for pay for school fees.
Then if I need anything for school fees, like a bag, book, something, so sometimes they come out for my salary. Sometimes they affect for food for house.
As school bells across Lagos prepare to ring once again, families are hoping for more than just the start of a new academic session. They're yearning for relief, financial stability, and tangible support. While their resilience in the face of economic hardship is evident, their urgent need for intervention is equally clear.
Wow, you've heard the people there in Lagos. They're really lamenting about the economic impact. You know, it's not just food anymore now because everything is impacted. Stockings, biros, stationaries generally, you know, and even transportation to school has equally been impacted. My guest was telling me a very personal story, but we won't go into that. So, Doctor,
well, when we talk about education, I think it's another serious area that we need to look into because people are being discouraged, taking their words to quality education. I want to say quality education, we simply not how beautiful the school is, but school that have government attention. And when you say school that have government attention, this must not be private, to be public, because if you go to many public, even here in FCT, except the one in the AMAC or what have you, you also not be happy. Even in AMAC, I can give you some numbers of schools that when you go there, you say, no, I will not allow my children to go to this. But how is it impacting? The problem is the fear of future. You know, when you don't have quality education now, it will reflect. You know, maybe after 12, 15 years, by that time you expect those children to be performing well. So the fear is now that the elites have the opportunity of sending their children to private school, while the people that are not that strong have to cope with the reality of even those private schools. I can tell you, most private schools now, they cannot even employ quality teachers. Maybe a secondary school graduate, they'll be employing. You know, they cannot afford an NC order. If you go to many of them, you can't see them having. It's because of the quality and the salary they are earning. Because if you don't pay them well, they would definitely look for where they will be paid well. So it has a very negative impact on, especially now that the purchasing power is very hard. You know, let's cool it down from when the first subsidy actually changed the narrative of things. Before, perhaps you paid 35,000. Now it's over 100,000. But the thing is, it is hard on parents because now that, let's even look at economic reality, you use about 60% of your income on food. Now you have to trade off about 30% of the income also on salary. So what on education for your children? How do you now cope with rent, you know, logistics and other things and rent?
So in some cases, some families might have to say, okay, since you've done secondary school, we're going to stop here for now. Maybe pause, go and work a bit.
But what is even happening now, and the reality of what happened before, if you have 3 children, especially when you have male, female, you can now say you can hold on, let this person goes before. Perhaps when you go, you now come and support the other ones. The reality is on us now.
All right, Dr. Bamai, what's your take on the situation? Doctor, what's your take on the situation?
It's unfortunate that this is happening, but it's actually happening. And my take is this: education is the fulcrum upon which everything else turns. And if we do not give sound and quality education to our children, then our future is not assured at all. And so government should take it seriously. I believe that we're at a stage where the government should call, a situation of emergency on education, not just lip service, but actual action, and do something like Ghana did. You know, Ghana worked on its public education system, got it to a point where the standard is good and the quality is good, and then it banned private schools. But nothing says that our government cannot do that here. We can throw money, we can declare an emergency, and therefore shift monies from other sectors, monies that are just sitting there and hanging there, and work on the educational sector, get it to a point where the quality and the standard in public schools is good, and ban private schools. Because part of the problem is the private schools. And because the private schools are available and government officials and elites can send their children there, they're not really looking in the direction of government schools. But the truth is, education is the fulcrum upon which everything else turns, and except we do something about it at the government level and turn the situation around, we're simply moving into a future that we're not going to enjoy. We're going to have a huge population that is not educated or half educated, and there will be a problem that we cannot resolve. Even right now, we see manifestations of that. So government should take this seriously. That's my take about it.
All right, now I'm just looking at some information here. In 2025 budget, Nigeria is allocating 3.52 trillion naira to the education sector, which is approximately 7.08% of the total budget. Now, this allocation, while a significant sum, has been described as a decrease compared to previous budget years, falling short of recommended benchmarks by organizations like UNESCO. Now, breakdown of the budget says the budget includes 827 billion naira specifically for education infrastructure. We can see that, over the course of the years, though that the money might be increased or something, but it's still it's a significant sum, quite all right. However, it is less. When something is high, but it's still less. I know they say irony and a contradicting thing happening there, but it's high, but it's less.
That's the state of our economy now, whereby you pronounce billion, trillions, but in terms of the real value, it does not really have the value. Like he actually said, I remember I was in Rwanda and Uganda. So, and I tried to look at the education pattern. If you get to Rwanda, you hardly see public and private school. Everything is public and it's quality. They don't compromise. But come to Nigeria, you see all sorts of different. Well, and when we talk about education, we talk about primary, secondary school, and tertiary education until we get back to the basis again by allowing free and quality education. I recall when I was schooling in Kwara State, then Ilorin to be precise, the government then gives us books, pay our school fees. We never even felt anything, or maybe. But now, for you to even buy some books, there was a day I tried to buy 25. How do you call it? 25 leaves. By the time I got to hear the price, it was surprised by how are we surviving.
What used to buy 20 naira?
20 naira, 10 naira. At your have you bought a pencil of recent? You see a month they called it. Until government declares state of emergency, like you rightly said, that we can get, because it's going to tell on us every country that want to advance. The basic of it is quality education, because that's what every other thing we build upon.
Quality education. Now, what can the government do? Because there has to be a role they can play in this situation. Right now, they've done intervention for farmers. They've done intervention vulnerable households, 7,000, 5,000. But education, again, we're back to it. It's very important. And if we don't have the right people in the right places, educated properly, the country keeps going in the wrong direction. So what can the government do in this situation now?
So when I was doing my PGD, diploma in education, being a qualified teacher, I did it in FCT. I did it government secondary school area 10, and I saw quality of teachers there, and I saw what they are giving. In fact, to send your child to public school in Amak is better than sending your child to a private school in maybe in other area council. But the question is this: how about subnational, which have the humongous numbers of students? So imagine, anything that is happening in FCT, if it can happen in subnational, because those states have more students compared to the national. So until we now said, okay, if federal government is declaring 20% of its budget, not the 7% on education, as supposed to be 25% in normal standard. If states also now move to that level of making sure that 20% is on education, Nigeria will be good for that. But until we go into that direction, that's when, look at the little one that this minister Alausa just did now. We are crediting him now that now we will not see another strike. In any time soon from ASU, simply because they have paid their end allowance is 50 billion. So if they are getting all those things they actually needed, it's going to resolve and solve the problem of education.
Doctor, what do you think the government can do? Because, you know, there has to be some sort of remedial or relief given to the education sector to help. Because you see, if parents are complaining, maybe make textbooks, subsidize on it or something, anything. What do you think the government can do to help the education sector in the country?
When I worked as a strategist for a government in my state here, I kept insisting to the governor that more has to be done for education to secure the future of our children. And one thing he kept saying, which stayed with me, is that, Doctor, don't worry when we come back for the second term. Doctor, don't worry when we come back for the second term. Unfortunately, he didn't get the chance to come back for second term. But it reflects the fact that we do not prioritize education in Nigeria. It's our leaders do not think it's important, forgetting that they would not be in the position there if they were not educated. It's education that gave them the opportunity to be where they are, and yet they are not prioritizing it. And so, first of all, our leaders would have to prioritize education. We have to know its value. We have to understand its value. We have to take it seriously. And one of the things I suggested to that government is to declare an emergency on education, which they did. But it was just a lip declaration. Because in reality, when you declare an emergency on something, it simply means that you would take resources that are sitting around that have not been used in other sectors and bring it back to this sector that you have declared emergency on. It also means that you would make attempts, deliberate attempts, to give education the allocations it deserves. At the UNESCO standard is between 20 and 25% of your budgetary allocations. For a very long time now, since 1999, no government in Nigeria has come even close to 25%. No government in Nigeria. That 7% you mentioned, it's miserly. It's very small, especially if you look at the population of Nigeria. We have a big population. So what do? Let's get to the UNESCO standard. Let's take monies that we are putting in other sectors and bring it back into education, knowing that that's the only way we can secure the future prosperity, security, and growth of Nigeria.
Okay.
Just because it's not a problem now does not mean that it won't be a problem.
In the future.
So our leaders need to take this seriously, prioritize it, put money in there, and let the money work to really strengthen the sector, to give our children a future and our country a good and prosperous future.
Okay. All right.
It's even a problem now because if you look at our education system, it's affecting people. If you look at people that are being recruited in all this insurgency and whatever, if you look at people that are being recruited for that are attacking people, unknown gunmen, if you look at them very well, it's a product of half education and bad education system.
So we can see that, you know, it's not just about if they'll be able to make money. This has a ripple effect. When you throw a stone into a water, you see the ripples. Everything.
And the narrative is changing now. You see contemporary said education is a scam. And we try to tell them that it's not a scam. Even for you to say scam, for you to pronounce scam, you need to be educated to pronounce those words.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Bamayi, yesterday we were supposed to have you on the program talk about the IMF downgrading Nigeria's economic growth outlook from 3.2% to 3%. We don't have enough time. So, shortly, in 1 minute, just give us your take on that projection by the IMF.
Well, I'm not surprised with the drop because the global economy itself is in trouble. I mean, Donald Trump came in and just scattered everywhere, and he's still scattering. Sometimes I look at some madness has a system in it, but this one doesn't seem to have a system. It seems he's enjoying the sound of his voice, you know, giving out those presidential decrees and all that. Anyway, the global economy is in stress, and we're part of the global economy. The insecurity we have here hasn't gone away. the challenges with power and production, the low level of production in our country, that hasn't been addressed. Really, nothing has been addressed. And so it's not surprising that the IMF is saying that our growth will contract instead of growing. And it's a reflection of all those things. But my hope is that the government will continue to have its hand on it, and probably before the year runs out, we should be singing a different song.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Dr. Elias.
It is quite expected, and even to add to that, you notice that we also have dropped in oil price. You know, our budget talks about $80. Yes. Now we are having 60,
59.
59, even $59 now. So that simply means going to affect the economy. It's going to contract. Even thanks to Dangote, that is helping us on balance of trade and balance of trade, payment to an extent. If not for that, it would have more worse for Nigeria. So it is expected that it's going to contract, and I don't see it even coming up soon until Nigeria gets to understand that we need to up our value chain in terms of more production, and that's what's going to help us.
All right. Thank you so much. It's been quite a very informative and educative episode of Business Daily on Trust TV this morning. Thank you, Dr. Aliyu Elias and Dr. Agosto Bamayi, for joining us all the way from Yola and in the studio here. It's been a pleasure having you both. Your insights have been quite good. Thank you. That's the much we have for you today on Business Daily on Trust TV. For more of our news programs, documentaries, you want to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream. Coming up is the news at 12. My name is Chamaka. Bye for now.